today to think about apprenticeships, but I just want to zoom in for a little minute to think about early talent in general and some of the challenges organisations are facing. And you can see on the screen there the stark reality of the shrinking labour market. And I'm sure those here on the call who are responsible for recruitment maybe are feeling the effects of that while you search for talent in your organisations. But it's not just about finding the right people. It's not just about finding people, it's about finding the right people. Those people who have the experience, skills, and qualifications to do the job. So to kick us off, I want a little bit of audience participation here. Andrew is going to put a poll on the screen, and I just really want to know, are you feeling the effects of that graph that I just showed you? Do you have skill shortages in your organisation? So a poll should appear on your screen that you should be able to say yes or no. And then, so there it is, it's just popped up on my screen, so hopefully you can see it as well. And that poll will allow you to vote. And we'll just give maybe 20 seconds. And then Andrew, maybe if you can show us the results of that poll.
Yeah, perfect. Ruth, I just had it in the chat there was maybe somebody's had an issue with the sound. I'm not sure if it's an isolated issue or if anyone else is struggling there. Maybe they raise their hand if they are struggling to hear.
Oh, then you can see there some people can hear okay, so maybe it's
Okay.
maybe just make sure if you can't hear, maybe just make sure your speakers are up loud or you're not muted. I know it sounds simple, but sometimes it's the simple things that are the answer. Yes, Martina, this will be recorded. Oh, great. So we do have excellent, people can hear. Okay, Andrew, do we have any results in? Okay, interesting. So, okay, so 75% say yes and 25% are no. Brilliant. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. So for those 75% that answered yes, you can see that you're not alone. An employer skills survey in 2022 identified that out of the percentage of employers that currently had vacancies while that poll was being asked, 35% of those vacancies represented employers that were struggling to find candidates with the right experience, skills, and qualifications to do their jobs. And it's not just employers that are aware of this challenge. The government too are battling to find solutions. And we're seeing headlines like the one you see on the screen there about the fact that they're now writing off student debt after 30 years, knowing that it's just not going to be paid. And they're exploring further support to the apprenticeship system as one of these solutions, because something has to change. Whether it's finding the solution to make the labour market get those skills and experience that employers are looking for, or it's maybe the fact that employers need to readjust their expectations or entry requirements, there has to be a solution to this problem. And that's the beauty of apprenticeships. That's why headlines like the one you see there about governments getting behind apprenticeships is such good news for us and for you as employers. Because apprenticeships are the way for the labour market to gain relevant experience and skills that are that perfect fit for the employer's needs, but also the employer gets that employee that can just bring so much to the table as they gain their qualifications and work at the same time. And we're hearing in Northern Ireland that that's recognised, which is great news. 32% of employers want to hire apprentices. They recognise that this is a potential solution for that skills gap. But unfortunately, only 8% currently do. And that's one of the reasons why we're hosting today's webinar, because at Workplus, we want to empower organisations to consider hiring apprentices armed with the information that they need, but also offer our support along the way. So who are we? Who are Workplus? Well, Workplus started over 5 years ago through a conversation with civil engineering employers. And out of that conversation came two fundamental assertions. One, there was a real willingness to collaborate, and two, a recognition that by collaborating, we can make the apprenticeship space better for employers and aspiring apprentices alike. So Workplus was born. And it became clear that that collaborative, coordinated approach wasn't simply needed in the civil engineering sector, it was needed across all sectors for several reasons. And I have a bit of a visual on the screen there. On the screen, you'll see two halves. So on one side, you have the dots that represent employers looking for talent. And on the other side, you have those job seekers looking for employers. And it can be a confusing space for both. And at Workplus, we are in the middle of that and we want to bring connections and clarity and make that space less confusing for everybody involved. So we want to make that space better for employers, where the early talent space is confusing. HR teams need good independent advice as well as recruitment support. But we also want to make that better for school leavers and career changers, because for aspiring applicants, that early talent space can be really confusing. I have a 16-year-old nephew at the minute doing his GCSEs and looking at different options for him to go on to. And it can be a very, very confusing space for somebody who is wanting to concentrate on exams. So we want to make that space easier for them as well. One of our apprentices told us that they made contact with 20 different companies separately during their A-levels before they discovered Workplus. And I'll show you the platform later on and just how we've simplified that process for both applicants and organisations to be able to find each other. So since Workplus started 5 years ago, it has evolved because things are evolving. Traditional recruitment methods just aren't getting the results organisation needs, and nothing ever stands still. There's always a need for a new supply, to look at things differently with fresh eyes, to see how we can do things better and with more efficiency. And we can see that even in the power sector, how we generate electric has changed. I know you can't see behind me, but I'm actually sitting very close to two different wind turbines, because we've recognised there's a need for new types of supply. And one of those wind turbines is my dad's, and my mum uses it to charge her electric car. Wee bit disappointed that, my mum has a cooler car than me, but the way we use electric has changed as well. And in the same way, with the progression of technology and AI, jobs are changing. The skills that we need for those jobs are changing. And we, as organisations, need to be ready to adapt and find what fits for our organisations at any given time. And at Workplus, we support members to know what's out there, because employers have fed back to us that skills programmes are a bit like a jumble sale. Everything's on the table, and finding what suits them in a pile can be very, very confusing. At Workplus, we're involved with being that connector for early talent, but in many different ways. We go into schools to engage young people around alternative pathways. We work with councils and LMPs around skills academies and helps promote programmes like Job Start. We're also aware that apprenticeships may suit some job roles in organisations, but there might be other job roles that it doesn't suit. So we connect with employability groups to find out what different programmes are happening and when, to help organisations reach those demographics that may be identified in their CSR policies that they want to reach or that suit certain job roles. But going back to what I said near the beginning, at the heart of Workplus is collaboration. And this space can only be changed when we work together. And doing that, we've worked with groups of businesses to spearhead new apprenticeship pathways, to lobby governments in key concerns and issues. So we really want to bring businesses together, because it can be a very disjointed space, and there's a lot of you in my small corner and I in mine. But we want to encourage employers to have a holistic, autonomous approach, and we want to provide them with a one-stop shop that enables them to see everything that's available to them. What does that look like then on the ground? What are we involved in? So we're a membership organisation. We work with members. We have forums. We have events. We go out to present those organisations to different audiences, like in school presentations and parents' evenings. We go to careers fairs at schools. We represent members at job fairs, talking about the different opportunities and pathways that are available in local organisations. We speak to careers advisors and work coaches. And we bring groups of clients together to work together on various programmes with different organisations. We also engage with employability organisations on our members' behalf to find out what's going on with them, what programmes are running, and what might help to support them with early talent. But we're here today to talk about apprenticeships. And we help our member companies recruit apprentices. Twice a year, we run campaigns where we go out and do the marketing and funnel that apprenticeship audience to the Workplus site. And we're blown away by the appetite there is for apprenticeship positions. So our January campaign, we had over 720 applicants, representing 70% of our post-primary schools in Northern Ireland. And that's because we've done the legwork going out to those post-primary schools and raising awareness of apprenticeship pathways and the Workplus website. So through that campaign in January, we had 42 job offers. This isn't a reflection on the quality of candidates, but it's a reflection on those 8% of employers that are offering apprenticeship roles. That's a reflection on the amount of apprenticeship positions there was to offer through the Workplus site. So obviously we would absolutely love to see more. We would love these applicants to be able to access great opportunities from new businesses seeking to hire apprentices. So very quickly then, just to cover the basics of apprenticeships, and maybe you're sitting there and you already know this, but just in case we have new employers here that would love to know just the basics of what's involved, I'm going to cover a few of the basic points, and then I'm going to hand over to my panel and we'll hear from the experts. So what is an apprenticeship? An apprenticeship is a job with training built in. An apprentice is considered an employee and is entitled to the exact same rights and contract as other employees. Typically, apprentices do off-their-job training once a week on day release. An apprentice must be contracted a minimum of 21 hours a week to qualify for the government paying the student fees. The government pays student fees now for all age apprenticeships unless you're in the public sector. If an apprentice is aged between 16 and 24, you avoid Class 1 national insurance. And a lot of businesses I'm talking to that are exploring this space ask me, what do I have to do? How do I prepare for hiring an apprentice? And really the main thing I advise them on is to have a mentor in place that is dedicated to that apprentice, bearing in mind that that could be this person's first ever job. So it's really important that that mentor is carefully chosen and willing to support that apprentice. So that's enough from me for a little bit. I'm going to talk now to Steve from Team VPay about his experience in hiring apprentices. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a wee second. Welcome, Steve. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks very much, Ruth.
Steve, can you tell us a little bit about your business, the size of your team and what you do?
Yeah, so we're a sports club management software provider called Team VPay, based out of Belfast. We've been going really full-time on our little startup since about September 2021. Was a little hobby project before that, but we've really taken off since actually COVID, oddly enough. Currently, we have about 37 people working for the company. And in that, there's 7 in the product team, and that's divided up between a product manager, 4 full-time experienced developers, and our 2 apprentices.
Brilliant. And can you tell us a little bit about the apprenticeships in your organization then, how that all came about?
Sure. It actually came about as a recommendation from a friend of Richard's, who's a mutual acquaintance to us both. And he was telling me about this Workplus thing that Richard was running with apprentices. And it sounded very intriguing, so we talked to Richard about it and discovered a little bit more about what hiring an apprentice would look like, and what the commitments were, and so on and so forth. For us, our software stack is Ruby on Rails. Finding Ruby on Rails developers is really difficult. So we have to invest quite heavily in training existing developers up in Ruby on Rails as well to get them proficient on it. So we thought, well, why not go back a step further and actually help students who are, studying for university. Let's give them the real world experience that they have while also training them in our software stack. So it's a little bit, for our own benefit as well as the apprentices' benefit. But certainly back when I was at university, the placement year was the year you got the real experience. The other years were interesting, but not maybe that necessary, it felt. Certainly could have been condensed. So we thought taking on some apprentices, bringing them through, showing them the real world experience, and making sure they were trained up in exactly what we're doing, it's beneficial for everyone all around.
Great, excellent. Yeah, so it's a win-win really for you
Yeah,
as an employer, but also looking for that skills gap, but also
absolutely. I mean, that's the key bit that it fills for us, because we have to invest heavily in training anyway, for anyone, and then this fills this skills gap, and it has, your people are coming in with, the right attitude, we've found, whenever we're hiring the apprentices.
Great. And we'll talk a little bit about how Workplus helped in that process, but just in terms, Workplus aside, kind of how you as an employer, is there anything you needed to do? I talked about mentoring there.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you needed to do to prepare before that apprentice joined your organization?
So yeah, because they were slightly younger than most staff that we've always employed, we had to make sure that everything in the office was was compliant with hiring younger people. So we had a little bit of tidy up to do around that kind of things. But we also had to put in place a training program, a more formal training program than we would normally have for more experienced developers coming in, because they all have went through the cycles, they know how to learn and so on. So we worked out, what exactly we want to take them through, what would it look like, what would they learn, the different aspects. As you mentioned, the mentors, we have like an overall mentor, but we also rotate, as well. So they'll be like, we're currently with Lee learning about a certain aspect, and then they'll move on to somebody else to learn about another particular aspect. So they get kind of that level of, experience. And we hired 2 apprentices as well. Initially, we were only going to hire 1, but we decided to hire 2, because certainly when I was in placement, I was paired up with another placement student, and we actually found it very beneficial to learn from each other as well. So we thought having 2 would really help them, develop together as well. So that was good. We could have hired 4. There were 4 really top candidates, but we only had capacity for up to 2. So it was 2 was what we hired. So yeah, generally we didn't have to put a lot of things in place. We wanted them to get a real world experience, see what it's like to be an employee, not to be isolated from the rest of the company. So, they sit with everyone else. They, take part in everything that everybody else does. And we just treat them as employees as well.
Great. And do they work in, some people say to me, oh, but it might be hybrid working. Would that work for an apprentice? Is your apprentices a mix of both, or are they in the office full time?
They like to be in the office. So
Okay.
we do operate hybrid working for most roles in the company. They like to be in the office. They like the banter that happens in the office. It's a great way to get to know people and stuff as well. But similarly, like, they're both avid sports people. So, they're both from, the Northwest. So, traveling back to the Northwest to do a game that night can be inconvenient. So, those days they just work from home, which is much handier for them. But yeah, it fits with our working structure, because in the development team we're quite spread about as well. I'm based here in Northern Ireland. One of our developers is down, in Kerry, with another guy in Birmingham, another guy in Ukraine. So, we're quite spread about anyway. So we've quite embraced the hybrid and remote working inside the company as well.
Brilliant. So that's also worked for their apprentices too. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So talk a wee bit about, how that all started. So how's it going? How are they getting on?
It's going great. So it is. They're both got can-do attitudes. They just jump in. They're willing to learn. They're willing to learn new things. They're willing to try out new things and stuff as well. And we've tried to give them quite a broad experience. So they're not just doing development. They're also getting involved in like what's going on with the customers. How do we get requirements in from the field? What are account management doing? Try to capture requirements. So we're trying to get them the whole life cycle of software development, rather than just saying, look, go and test this or go and write this. We want them to understand that this is why we're doing it, this is how we're doing it, and then this is how you monitor whether or not it worked. So they've been involved in those aspects too. So it's been really, really beneficial. They've taken the lead on some projects in-house, like internal communications for new features. They take the lead on that. They're publishing the information, they're writing it up, and so on, disseminating it. And it's been really good, what they've been doing, help and support for our users as well. They've taken that on board themselves, and they've been producing, really useful videos and training material and stuff that's really helped us, in ways that we hadn't anticipated we needed. So, they've been really good. It's really good to get that kind of new insights from them as well.
Fantastic. And what advice would you give to employers who are not engaged with the apprenticeship system? And you've sort of covered this, but I would also, some employers would have a wee bit of apprehension around, they might not add value for a while. So, is it worth it? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, well, Yes, it depends what you're looking for, I guess, on that one as well. For us, we're developers, we've always found that it takes about 6 months for developers to be proficient at any level. So I've experienced this in a number of companies I've worked for. They'll start to be proficient and it'll gradually build up. But after about 6 months, they're really, fully proficient, can be, left to their own devices. It is a bit longer with apprentices. Absolutely, it's going to be longer. They don't have the same background, but at the same time, they don't have the same preconceptions and
Mm.
stuff as well. They don't have the same, like, this is how I've done it before, therefore I'm going to do it this way. Well, it's like, no, we work differently. This is how we do it. So that helps a good bit as well. So it does take a little longer, but they are proficient at things that you may not anticipate them to be proficient at because they're coming in with fresh eyes, fresh knowledge, and they can look at things quite differently. And I find that if you hire the right apprentices, their positive attitude as well really helps because they're keen. They've went through the process of deciding they want to be an apprentice, deciding they want to do this, applying for the job, fighting off other people who've applied for the job as well. Effectively, they're showing that they have determination and a willingness to do more than their peers, which really helps. That comes back into the organization as a breath of fresh air as well. People then become motivated by their positive energy. So yeah, I think that offsets a good bit around, the little bit extra it takes them to get up to speed.
Excellent. Yeah, we've definitely got that feedback. There's a hunger and a willingness that you
Hmm.
just sometimes don't see with other
Yeah,
roles levels.
particularly I did a lot of graduate recruitment in the past. And a lot of times with graduate recruitment, you get the feeling that somebody, particularly with software IT, somebody did this because there was money at the end of it. And it's like, right, okay, but you're not really interested in doing it, and that's, we can teach people how to write software. That's not difficult. Can't teach you to be interested in doing it,
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what we look for in the apprentices as well.
Fantastic. And then just lastly, I'm gonna take after we speak to Cassie, I'm gonna have a wee look at the Workplus site and that process. But just Steve, from an employer, how did being part of Workplus help with that recruitment side of things?
Well, it's quite simple. We wouldn't have had apprentices without Workplus. At the size of our organization, we don't have the capacity to go and figure out what's an apprentice scheme, how do we put it together, how do we, work out this tri-party agreement with, Department of Finance, University. We have no knowledge about any of that kind of stuff. Where would we even go to look for candidates? We couldn't promote ourselves out to schools and stuff the same way. We just wouldn't have apprentices without Workplus. It's quite simple. So I think Workplus has been, kind of fundamental to us having apprentices.
Great, that's brilliant. That's lovely, lovely to hear. Thank you so much. Great. I am going to you can relax for a wee minute, Steve. I'm going to chat to Cassie now, who is on the other side of things, the apprenticeship side of things. So, Cassie, do you just want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the apprenticeship that you're currently doing?
Yep, thanks, Ruth. Hi everyone, my name's Cassie MacArthur. I'm from Armagh. I am 20 years of age and I'm currently in my second year of the higher level apprenticeship in quantity surveying. So I work for NE Networks, and I do my uni degree at Ulster University in Belfast. So my current split, when I was still in uni, was 1 day a week released to Belfast to go to uni to do my degree, and the other 4 days I was working with NIE, so 2 days from home and 2 days in the office. My current role is I work in the program and performance department with NIE, so the contracts I work with are on the overhead lines, so all your telegraph poles, that's what I'm working on. So mainly we have 4 contractors. At present I'm actually managing one, so I've built up now about 2 years there in September. So at this stage, I've come quite far and I've learned a lot. So I'm at the point now where I can be pushed in and given the full responsibility.
Fantastic. That's great. And obviously you're a very high achiever. You're doing so well even after a couple of years in NIE. So full-time university might have seemed an obvious choice, but just wondering what led you to choose an apprenticeship?
Yeah, so it was upper sixth, and we were looking at UCAS, obviously choosing our university options. I had chose maths, accountancy, and architecture. Architecture was my first choice. It was what I wanted to do all along. I was set in stone. I was going to Queen's, got into Queen's as well, to do it. But just later on that summer, I kind of thought I need to see if architecture is definitely what I want to do, because it was a 7-year course, and to just dive in with no experience, it was a big thing. So over the summer between school and university, I worked in an apprenticeship or a architect's office 1 day a week just to get a feel for it, and I absolutely hated it. So I was so happy that I done that, because I knew, no, that is not for me, going to uni 7 years just to come out with no job, no experience, because I went uni full time. So from that I thought I need more options. So I then applied to Workplus, where I think I'd applied to 7 different courses, solely because I wanted doors that were open that I could fall back on. So Workplus was great in that sense, that it gave me so many opportunities. But from that I applied to quantity surveying. I actually loved the thought of quantity surveying because it's very mathsy, and that was something a skill I was very good at. And I wanted to apply myself where, I could do well. So from that, I working with employers, I then had one apprenticeship that I accepted, and then I actually got another interview for another company. And the only reason I took the other interview, which is the job I'm in now, was solely for more interview experience, because that's another great thing at Workplus. I had so many interviews, which helped so well, and it meant I already had an apprenticeship and I done well in the interview, so I knew what I could work on in the next interview. So done it and actually got that apprenticeship, and it just had better hours, closer to home, and it was just better for me. So that's why I picked one I'm in now.
Fantastic, great. And we talked a little bit, Cassie, at the start about, the challenge for employers with early talent. Do you think apprentices are more loyal to their companies? Do you think it's easier to retain an apprentice from your perspective?
From my perspective, I think so, yeah. So NIE are absolutely great. Like anything I ask for, I get. They provide such great support and guidance. As you say, I have a mentor. She's absolutely great. Any issues I have, I can go to her. I also have my manager. But yeah, I think from an employer's perspective, it's kind of what you offer to your employers, what they'll give back. Like, since my company are so good to me, I feel obliged and I want to do well for them. And I want to be putting in 100% all the time, and work well.
Brilliant. That's great. And you're around your age, obviously you'll have friends that are maybe doing apprenticeships, maybe going to uni. How do you feel the culture? Do you feel the culture is changing around apprenticeships? What's the word on the street, Cassie?
Well, when I was upper sixth, I remember saying to my mum and daddy, I was like, look, I'm going to do an apprenticeship. And they were like, what? Like, no, just because there was such a kind of stigma around apprenticeships, that it was all nearly like a tradie kind of job as such. But when like I told them the benefits, you've no debt, you get a wage, you're working alongside doing your degree, so there's no other way that it's obviously going to help your success in your degree as well. But definitely my friends, like, they're like, oh, I wish I'd done an apprenticeship, just when they see how good it is, and they're living in Belfast, and like it's not all what it's cracked up to be. And I'm definitely so glad that I've done the apprenticeship now.
Great. And we have an audience here of potential employers that are maybe thinking about early talent and growing their team. What would you say to them to encourage them to think about apprenticeships?
Well, Stephen has more or less covered it all, and it sounds like he's doing a great job. But just kind of make the role I had, it sounded so appealing. I knew that I was going to get exposed to so many different areas. In my current role, I would say my manager kind of has thrown me in at the deep end, but you can thrive on that. And since you're learning with so many other good professionals, if they're capable, let them work at it. Like, so I now have this responsibility, and I feel, yeah, I need to push on here and do well. But yeah, that's probably another thing. And then obviously, since I'm doing my degree, that's also academic learning alongside the work experience you're actually getting. So it's kind of a no-brainer that what I'm learning in my degree will in turn help me with what I'm doing day to day with my job.
Yeah, brilliant. We've also heard it from a lot of employers that they find apprentices bring great ideas back in from uni of things
Yeah.
that they've learned, but
Yeah, no,
equally
definitely. Because I'm kind of thinking if I'm learning stuff in uni, I'm thinking, oh, I haven't actually seen that yet in work, or vice versa. If I see something in work, I'm like, oh, I haven't been taught that yet or something. So yeah, it's definitely a good way to link the both of them together.
brilliant. And you touched on this a little bit, Cassie, about Workplus and the platform and all the opportunities. So do you want to just expand on that? You know, whenever you were going through that process of thinking about careers, you know, how did Workplus help you with that?
Yeah, so Workplus it was kind of March time. So if I'm being totally honest, I applied to, as I say, very different courses the day before the deadline Workplus closed, solely because I didn't really have a clue what I wanted to do after that, you know, with the architecture. But I just wanted to have so many options. And from that, I had, as I say, lots of interviews with employers, which was great because, you know, I was 18 years old at the time. I only ever had one job before that. You know, going into the professional work world was very difficult. But I think with the interview processes that Workplus obviously had arranged was great because it gave me the opportunity to progress, you know, learn what was good from one interview and bring it to the next. But yeah, other than that, it gives you great opportunities. As I say, I had 2 apprenticeships that I basically could choose from, which is unbelievable. But I wouldn't have had that, as I say, without Workplus guiding me through it.
Brilliant. And you as an applicant, I'm going to show the platform now, but you as an applicant, you were able to see all the opportunities that were relevant to you and filter
Yeah,
for those opportunities that interested you.
it was great. You applied, so you apply for the job as such, and then after I'd done that, I had the list of employers, and then you can rank them. So if I seen an employer I hadn't even heard of, I'd have put it as first. You know, definitely want an interview with them. But as I said, there were so many employers from the list I'd never even heard of, that obviously were keen to hire apprentices and get interviews.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Cassie, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
No
And
problem at all.
Steve, well, it's been really helpful.
Thank you.
If you have any questions for Steve and Cassie, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll not let them off the hook just yet. They'll be with us to the very end. So we'll maybe come back to them if we feel that they could answer one of your questions. And we've talked quite a lot about the Workplus platform. So I am just going to share my screen here and just very briefly give you a whistle-stop tour of what that looks like for both the applicant and for the employer. So you'll see here really going back to that bow tie of dots, Workplus want to bring connections and clarity to that recruitment process. So you have the 2 sides of our site. You have the side for employers wanting to hire an apprentice, and you also have the side for aspiring apprentices like Cassie was a few years ago that want to find out about opportunities. So as a membership organisation, we work with small to large companies. These are just some of the logos that we've worked with recently. Some are members, some we're working with on council campaigns. But as a member of Workplus, exactly what Cassie was saying there, you get to profile your business. So maybe if you're a small employer wondering how to get your name out there, you get a profile on the Workplus site. And as you know, employers build their websites for all their stakeholders, mostly customers. They may have a careers tab there to try to attract in early talent. But this is a page really that's very visual. It's very simplistic in what it shows those early talent audiences. They can find out where you are, where your sites are across Northern Ireland, where your roles are, whether we've heard about hybrid roles today, but there might be some in the factory or solely at home or solely in the office. You can also insert quotes from either maybe one of the managers or the apprentices. We also have quotes from apprentices. You can also show the size of the organization and really very simply what that applicant wants to know if they haven't heard of you. So who you are, what do you do, and employee benefits. I'm showing AIB's page here. We also did some additional marketing work with them to help them create day in the life stories. We did an open doors event for parents and influencers to come to see what roles are available, what it would be like to work there. And we also, on their behalf, helped them out with a social media campaign. So on the site, you can include videos like a day in the life to really give an insight into what a role is like within that company. In the employer side, then you obviously receive a help desk, and this is your dashboard as well. We often get asked, you know, what should we pay an apprentice? So we have a help center here, which you can search for different keywords. And we also have interview questions and everything you might need help for when you come to think about employing an apprentice. And obviously at Workplus, we're here as well. We're a small team and we're always on hand to provide advice. This is what it looks like within the Workplus site. Then you have a dashboard, which you can build your profile from in the background. We also have an opportunity for you to explore, and Steve mentioned this as well, to explore courses. We've built a catalogue of courses. We've talked to training providers across Northern Ireland. We visited websites to make sure that all the information we have is up to date. And that really gives you the opportunity to explore the different apprenticeship pathways that are out there for different jobs. And you never have to leave the Workplus site to be able to see what's out there. So there's an accountancy one I'm showing now, and it just gives you an overview of the course. It gives you an overview of the modules. It allows you to read that to see if that matches your job description and the role that you're thinking about. And if it does, then you can create your job opportunity. So you can add a number of colleges that have that course that is suitable to your job. And you can do your job title, and then you also input the information with your job description and person specification. Within the site, we are on hand to help you, but we also have these blue question marks, which will guide you through the process and give advice as you do that. As Cassie mentioned, I'm just going to show you an historic page here, but it just shows you exactly what that applicant sees. So the applicant goes through a dual application, like Cassie mentioned. So they apply through Workplus, they create their profile, but they can also then apply to the course that that employer has said is suitable for their job role. So essentially they're doing two things, and that applicant then sitting in front of you when they come to interview, you can make sure they have to tick a box to say that they've applied to the course. So you can make sure that they're suitable for your organization and they've applied to the relevant course. So that's just a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of the Workplus platform. The next campaign that we are running on behalf of our members, I'm just going to share the screen here so you can see the dates. Just bring it up. There we go. So you can see the dates there. Our next campaign that we're running is in August, and we run two campaigns a year. We run one in January when applicants are just starting to think about their options, but we also run one in August when you know, applicants like Cassie have maybe got the results, or maybe they've done something in the summer that they maybe want to rethink pathways. So we run a campaign in August, and those are the dates. So if you're interested in being part of that campaign, becoming a member of Workplus, we're asking employers to join us by the 19th of July. That just gives you plenty of time to create your profile within the site and to create those job descriptions and person specifications so that it's ready to go. Because from the 12th of August, those opportunities go live and applicants have until the 26th to apply. Then the site closes for applicants and you can log in as an employer to shortlist and those applicants. You can see those applications and you can decide who you're going to call for interview. Interviews then happen by the 30th of August and offers can be made from the 3rd of September. And we keep that timeline very staged. We keep that timeline very tight so that everybody knows what is happening, employers and apprentices alike. They know when the interview deadlines are, they know when offers will be made, and then hopefully whoever is successful in that application can start from September onwards. Okay, before I wrap up, Andrew, I'm just going to ask, is there any questions within the Q&A that we could answer now or put to Steve or Cassie before I just close up with some of the additional support that we offer?
Yeah, there's a question come in there about apprentices meeting the training needs set by the training provider and how that can affect the employer and the training provider. So I think it's like how does the performance of, I suppose, what are the, you can see that there in Andrew's about training needs. What are the standards that are set that the apprentice needs to meet just to stay on to the apprentice and be funded, essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially what Workplus do, and within the site you can read all about that course that apprentice that suits your job role. So you'll be able to see what the standard is of that course, what the modules entail, but also within the site there's who to contact in terms of that training provider for that course coordinator or that course trainer. So you can we can either make introductions with you, or you can reach out to that training provider and chat to them about that course to make sure that your job will meet the standards, and you can chat to the training provider. Funding for an apprenticeships, most apprenticeships are funded by the government, all age apprenticeships, unless you are a public organisation or that the role that you are recruiting for is publicly funded. So you just need to be careful about that. Steve, do you have anything to add about maybe your relationship with the training provider, whether the college or university, in terms of preparation?
Yeah, it was actually pretty straightforward. So it was we went through University of Ulster at Belfast, and that's where both of our students are from, our student apprentices are from. So like they have this down to fine art now. There's a tri-party agreement. They send you the information packs around it. It's actually now they simplified the tri-party agreement so that they don't do quite so many visits to us on site anymore. As the number of apprentices has scaled up, they found that visiting them all was difficult. I think the question may have also been like, though, if you've any internal training, does that need to be of a particular standard? But that's really up to yourselves. There's no requirement from the University of Ulster, for example, to deliver internal training to the apprentices at a certain level. That's whatever you need for your own, your own job, your own company, whatever your standards are yourselves. That won't affect it. But Workplus look after making sure that only the eligible courses are the ones that are listed. So so the ones that you'll have through the university are the ones that are eligible for apprenticeship schemes. So you won't be getting people from that are doing a degree that isn't eligible for apprentices, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And within the Workplus site, we would only show you the courses that are relevant to apprenticeship courses. So that that dual application applicants will only be through the Workplus site applying to an apprenticeship course. Does your service differ from colleges to universities? No. If it's a higher level apprenticeship that's potentially run through the university, it's exactly the same process for both the applicants and the employer. Yes, the course, as I mentioned, the apprentice, when employed, gets a salary, gets a wage, and they get their training is covered by the government, unless it's a public organisation. What do you get for your membership fee? I'm actually going to cover that in the next slide, so I'll leave that one and we'll talk about that. At the next one, how many years in an apprenticeship? It can vary, mostly 3 to 4. Cassie, how many years is yours? You're going into your
5
third?
years. Yeah.
Yours is 3.
5, sorry.
Sorry, 5. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, 5. And Steve, the apprentices that are with you.
So for the computer science one, the university has it down to a very modular set of blocks, and it's up to the student and their agreement with their employer. They can be anywhere between 3 and 6 years, and they can alter that as they go through. So if they find 1 year is a little harder than the next year, they can move some modules. Both of our apprentices are currently targeting 4 years,
Okay.
which is actually exactly the same length of time as you would do a computer science degree anyway.
Yeah, perfect. And I know some of the lower levels, so the lower level 2 and level 3 might only be 3 years. Some are 2, depending again on the level. But that can all that information is dependent on the course and within the site or within the college or university's website as well. Membership fees depend on the size of the organisation. So maybe, unless there's any question, I'm just going to cover now what Workplus supports and a little bit more about how to get in touch about our membership, unless there are any other questions appearing. Don't want to go ahead too quickly. No? Great. Okay. So in terms of what Workplus support you with, on the screen there, now that's not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but just some of the key things that we are supporting our members with currently. So we've talked a little bit about graduate placement years, and we've heard from our members that they would like support the way we support with apprenticeships. They would also like support with hiring undergrad placements in their placements year. So we're really excited to be launching support with that over the next few months. We're also engaged with work experience schemes and projects. So to upstream that early talent audience, we've worked with councils to connect local schools with local employers. We also work with organisations that have sites in the Republic of Ireland. So if you have sites in the Republic of Ireland and would like support with early talent there, we'd also love to chat to you about that. As mentioned before, we engage with skills academies and council-led programs to ensure our members have the most up-to-date information and what is happening that could suit their early talent needs and skills requirements. We've talked in depth about apprenticeships already. I'm not going to cover that again. And I just mentioned as well that we do offer additional support to members or organisations that want to raise their profile with early talent audiences. So we've done things like social media campaigns on organisations' behalf with engaging content. We've done in-person events, open doors events that engages influencers and parents. And that's a very brief overview of Workplus and the type of activity they're engaged in. So if you would like to discuss anything that you've heard today, to discuss membership fees for different sizes of your organisations, or anything that's on the screen there, we're going to finish today's webinar. And when we finish today's webinar, your screen will then change to be a survey. It's a very, very quick survey, and it's just an opportunity for you to feedback on today's webinar. If you find it helpful, if there's anything we should have covered that we didn't cover, but also to select which categories of support that on the screen would be of interest to you, so that we can, and leave your contact details so that we can contact you about anything that is on the screen there and chat to you in more detail about what that looks like for your organization. So before we do that, before that screen appears, I just want to say a big thank you once again to my panelists. So Steve from Team VPay, thank you so much for giving us your perspective today as an employer. And Cassie from NIE Networks, again, thank you for giving us the other side of things and what it looks like to be an applicant.